obviously this isn't a weekly vlog, but I wanted to take this time to actually like point out something real quick. And I just wanted to take this time to just first of all thank y'all for those who stuck by me for this long. I would like to thank people who stuck by me before the 600 video, but I don't even think that those people exist. So for those who stuck around now, I'm very, very, very thankful for it. It's easy. I want to just go ahead and get a little vulnerable with you guys for a little bit. Obviously, I've said this multiple times before. I do suffer from depression. I do have chronic depression, and it's really bad. And because I have the chronic depression, it stems from me it stems from me overthinking about things, and I tend to think about like a lot of things outside of myself a lot, like because if I think internally, then I'm reminded of all of the monsters that I live with internally, and eventually one of them is going to like eat me alive. So I try my best to sort of like think externally, and I think about how big and how massive the universe is, and how like how expansive time is, and like the very concept of existence as being this gigantic thing that I tend to I look at myself, and I remind myself that I'm smaller than a grain of sand in the grand scheme of everything. So I tend to it's really easy for me to forget that like I exist and my existence is valid in the grand scheme of things. You know what I'm saying? It's like because I don't see myself like I see myself as like a tiny drop of oil in a machine that has used me and got rid of me by now. So I see myself as a tiny drop of oil that's dried up somewhere, and it's just still drying. That's kind of how I envision myself. So I tend to forget that there are people who actually see me as something more than just dried oil, something more that's just the remains of something that is used and cast away, and is just sort of just this minuscule concept in a grand scheme of the entire universe. I tend to forget that my existence is valid or matters. So I need that I need that affirmation like almost constantly, by the way, to like remind myself that I'm not I'm not nothing. Does that make sense? I'm weird. Like I said, it sounds weird, but just it sounds weird, but it's like when you grew up bullied and grew up kind of you're like growing up bullied and growing up broke and growing up in the marginalized communities, and kind of just sort of like getting like I grew up I grew up in a marginalized community. Like I grew up black and poor, surrounded by other black poor people who picked on me for being the blackest and the poorest. And you know, when you can't find solidarity with people that you're taught you're going to naturally have solidarity with, it screws with your head. Like I haven't quite outgrew that, which is why I don't take roasting lightly. I take jokes very literally. I also don't like caste systems, CASTE. Look it up if you don't know what it is. I don't like class systems. I don't like this idea of comparison. Like, you get to be treated this way because you're this way, and you get to treat it this way because you're this way. And even though we're the same, I get to treat you like this because you don't have this and I have this. And I don't like doing that stuff. And but like growing up in that space, it definitely screwed up my way of thinking. I tend to, especially because like imagine being called nerd your entire life while having failing grades. I was not a smart person. I'm not a smart person, but I was called nerd and picked on relentlessly for that just because I wore glasses. I need y'all to understand this kind of stuff like that really messes with your head, and it's really easy to like for some people who probably never had to actually go through anything to just look at me and go, well, why don't you just outgrow that way of thinking? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like you never suffered before. Nothing bad has ever happened to you, so you don't have to worry about it's like you don't have to worry about like being bombarded with plaguing thoughts that depresses you and stresses you out. Because you never went through that, or because you have somehow managed to like get over it, you think that everybody can get over it. That's not how I operate. Like I can't just get over stuff, especially when bad stuff keeps happening. It's not like I would gladly get over something when it stops, but when it keeps going and gradually gets worse every time, the only thing that goes on in my head is, will it ever stop? And if it doesn't, can I at least talk about it? You know what I'm saying? And I'm way past asking for permission to talk about something that I feel like I should just mention now. I should just be able to just say, this sucks. Here's why. I'm getting out of this topic here. But like but outside of that, I am very thankful to the people who have actually like looked at me with my perspectives, my way of thinking, my really screwed up viewpoints, and said, you know what, I'm gonna give this guy a chance to speak. I think he got some okay ideas, or some okay thoughts, and I really appreciate that because I've been told to shut up my whole life, and no, no, no. As a matter of fact, you talk too. Everybody talk. Everybody start talking. We're at this point right now where nobody needs to shut up. We all share the same viewpoints as some of the most successful people in history. We should all be talking. So no. You know. But I will say this though, like I will not change my perspectives or like alter who I am or alter things because I want to expand to a bigger audience. I don't want to do that. I'm Paul Mooneying this thing, okay? Paul Mooney, if you ever like paid attention to his stand up, I don't think his stand up ever changed. Of course he didn't like become successful. Like white audiences couldn't stand him. The dude was saying stuff back then that was considered controversial and people didn't want him around. Like they're like, oh wow, he's saying all the stuff that Mooney is like. Oh wow, Pryor is saying all the stuff that Mooney is saying. Should we start liking Mooney now? No, he's old school. Whatever. But the fact of the matter is that like I'm not trying to appeal to a grander audience, although I would like to. But I don't want to apply. I don't want to get a bigger audience if it means me having to like avoid talking about things that make people uncomfortable. If it means like singing the praises of rich people or something like that. Like I'm not, or like just completely going off kilter with my own perspective on things. I've been the way that I am for a long time. There's people out there who will tell you all day like, oh, this is who he has been for years, and it's like, yeah, that's because I'm me. It's like I'm willing to change my perspective on something if that thing that I have a perspective on changes. But until that thing changes, in a good way, by the way, I'm still going to have a perspective on it. Like, you can't convince me that something bad is good just because you and a couple of other people like it. That makes sense? So that's what I'm saying, though. That's my take. That's my perspective. With that being said, there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. Wanted to take this time to also talk about this real quick. I have been, like I said, I've been reading the Bible lately, and I'm already radicalized. I'm already a little bit radicalized. Obviously, there's some parts of the Bible I still don't understand, but I haven't even finished Genesis yet, and I'm already radicalized on it. First of all, reading the Bible from Genesis on down, this is going to be a challenge. Okay, once again, it's Tolkien, it's Lord of the Rings. Okay, it's just this big book, tiny text, but also the chapters are really short. That's a good thing. But like the thing that radicalized me the most is when they actually like talk about Eden as if it's like a real place, like as if it's an actual location on Earth, on this physical plane here. And the way that they talk about it, they make it sound like it's in either Africa or it's somewhere in the Middle East. And in my brain, you know what I'm saying, considering everything that's been done to the Middle East in my lifetime, I'm at least like 31 or something. And like in my lifetime of seeing, the Middle East, it's always been like bombarded with violence and pillaging and people going in there and just blowing things up. And people just saying, well, they blow themselves up, why can't we blow them up too? You know what I'm saying? It's just crap like that. And it's just like, I'm like, y'all, if you're a Christian, this should disgust you. It should disgust you what is happening to the Middle East in general. You know what I'm saying? Because at some point that means that if you consider Eden to be a real place and not just like a state of mind or whatever, like if you consider Eden to be a real place, somebody out there is nuking that place. Probably like right now. You see what I'm saying? It's just like if you're a Christian, that should upset you the most. But also it made me think to myself, people back then, society back then was keen on the idea that society, like that humankind, started in Africa. There's white supremacists that cites the Bible because to justify them being white supremacists. And in the first book of the Bible, it confirms that life ultimately began somewhere in Africa, somewhere in the Middle East, somewhere in that. It talks about the Euphrates River, Syria, Ethiopia. At no point do they mention Europe. And this is the first book. So it's I'm like I said, I'm a bit of a slight Christian. I'm a bit of a little, like, my Christianity is at least like 10% of my identity. Okay, because I followed, I was of the church. I do know, I every so often I find myself quoting Bible scriptures. The meek shall inherit the earth. Jesus wept. Methuselah. Sometimes I just say Methuselah. I don't know. Fun fact about Methuselah, he actually is a direct descendant of Adam. Speaking of that, we don't talk about, like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in Genesis too, like, obviously Noah's Ark and all the other stuff, but we don't talk about, like, we talk about Adam, Eve, and Cain and Abel, but we don't talk that much about Seth. We don't talk about Adam and Eve's, like, descendants. And I love the fact that, like, nobody ever, like, tends to overthink the Bible and ask, hey, if Adam and Eve had 3 sons and one of them is dead, how did they get grandkids? If they're like the first humans on the planet, how did they have grandchildren when they had 2 sons? You know what I'm saying? Like, just the guy just, like, there's no way that God just said, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and give Cain a wife after seeing him kill his brother. You know what I'm saying? It's just like nobody ever stops and everything. Like, I'm also gonna give Seth a wife, and he is after like at no point does anybody ever be like, did they do stuff with Eve? You know what I'm saying? Nobody says that. Nobody says that. They all just say, nope. They left the nest, got married, had kids on their own. Nobody ever, like, it's so wild to me, like, but another thing too is that, like I said, we don't talk about, hold on, I think I got a list of the descendants, because I'm keeping notes. I'm reading the Bible and I'm taking notes, okay? And like, there's Irad, there's Jared, there's, I think it's okay, so there's Enoch. By the way, there's 2 Enochs, right? There's Enoch, who is like Cain's son, and then there's another Enoch who is I don't know, it's like one of Seth's great grandkids. And at some point, what's even crazier about the Bible is that, like, you read the Bible and the people back in the day lived a really long time. Like, according to the Bible, Adam lived to be. Ooh, hold on. I can't find. I'm looking through my notes. I should have, like, actually had this stuff available at the time. I should have had this. Man, come on. Adam died at 912 years old. No. He died at 930 years old. So it's like I don't know if we're talking about, like, by literal years standards or whatever. It's just wild. Like, people live like okay, to put this in perspective, what Seth had Enos at 105 years old before dying at 912. Methuselah was like 782 when he had his first kid, apparently, and he died at like 969. You know what I mean? Like, that's almost a century. Enoch, well, one of the Enochs, he was like 65 when Methuselah, his kid, was born, before dying at 365. You see what I mean? Like there's a, and also another thing too is that like they go down the list of all these grandkids of Adam and Eve, and they only give the names of the wife to like Lamech. And Lamech, he had two wives. One of them was Ada, and the other one was Zillah. Ada gives birth to Jabal, you know what I'm saying, who's the father of such as dwell in tents. And Zillah gives birth to Tubal Cain, Tubal Cain, who is an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, and also his sister Naama, which, by the way, if you follow Kwanzaa, Niyama, Naama, I'm not saying that there's a connection there, but could there be? I'm just saying though, it's like I'm just now, I'm reading the Bible and it's starting to like a lot of stuff in there is just starting to make sense, and I'm just like I'm not once again I'm not trying to be like one of those conspiracy theorists through the Bible type guys. I'm not trying to be the I'm not trying to hyper radicalize myself. I'm reading the Bible for the same reason that I will watch a movie that I've been avoiding watching for years. It's just a curiosity, and B, so when people actually bring it up, I can also understand the conversation a little bit to join in, because there's way too many bigots out here who use the Bible to justify being just the absolute worst people. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and I want to be able to say, hey, the Bible also has some cool stuff in it too. The Bible also has some nice people in it too. The Bible also has some really decent concepts too. Jesus Christ was like, what was he? He was what, a Palestinian? He was a Jew from Palestine. He was a Jew from Palestine, right? Who was also a socialist and hung out with the most oddest of people while also helping people just because he was a cool guy. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, you got racists up in here saying Jesus Christ was white. You know what I mean? It's just wild, guys. Like we not having these types of conversations. This is crazy to me. But yeah, like but that was kind of like the whole point of this video was ultimately to talk about, like how I'm kind of just starting the Bible a little bit. I haven't even finished Genesis yet, and I think I'm already starting to get a little radicalized. But like, I'm not about to be radicalized. So I'm not about to become like a white supremacist or a Republican or everybody needs to start hating the marginalized communities because everybody knows that in the Bible, white man's is on top and everybody else is on bottom. You know what I'm saying? Nothing like that. I'm not doing that. I'm just it's like like now I'm reading this and I'm just like, did you guys even read this? Like, how are y'all not mad about what they're possibly doing to the real life location of the Garden of Eden? How what? Also, didn't know that Noah's Ark was like the first big story in the Bible. I thought Noah's Ark took place like a lot later after like maybe Sodom and Gomorrah and all the other stuff. But no, this is Genesis level stuff right here. It's crazy. Like, I did not know this. But like, I think another thing too is that like if you read the Bible like a story instead of like as a means to sort of like modify your perspective on things, then it's actually a very entertaining and compelling story. It's just like I'm reading this stuff like I can't wait to see what happens next. So what's going on here? Ooh. Oh. Oh. I know I'm gonna probably like upset a lot of religious folks with this, so I want to take this time to point out real quick. If you're offended by this, if you're offended by my perspective of this, just know that one, I don't care, and two, I don't like two. I'm not going. I legitimately, the only people I make fun of, as far as the religious takes are concerned, are people who use religion to demean and demoralize other people. So if you are upset about anything that I said, just know that I know what upset you and I don't care. Because there's a lot of people who utilize religion to actually be helpful and be kind and be generous to people. There's a lot of people who utilize the Bible to sort of just sort of like depict who they are in a good light and try their best to be as helpful and as kind and as forgiving and as respectful as possible. I'm not saying that you have to go out, and I'm not saying that like, to be a good Christian you have to go out and marry a gay person or something, but you can at least leave them alone if you don't like them. You don't have to use religion. If you're using a religion to be anything other than a bullying sociopath who treats people cruelly because you don't like them, then more power to you. And I hope that you actually do very well in life. I hope God blesses you the greatest way imaginable. But we all know that those are not the people that I'm addressing. I think y'all know the type of religious folks that I'm addressing, and you know how I feel about them. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and head out. I gotta get ready for work. Love, peace, and happiness to everybody out there. Why did I do that? This isn't a live. This isn't a weekly vlog. But I still want people to know specifically, I truly do 100% believe in love, peace, and happiness, and I cannot wait to I can't wait to get to Exodus now. I'm locked in. This is a good story, dog. This is a good story.